Hi everyone. Sorry for the delay. It is 4:05. I was supposed to be here at 4. I've actually been here for the last 20 minutes, but my trusty laptop, which has never given me a problem, is only 6 months old or so, uh, got stuck and I had to reset it multiple times. Very frustrating when I'm very punctual, but it's kind of out of my hands. I apologize about that. Um, okay, so I got a bunch of questions. I don't think I can answer all of these, but I'm very grateful to have gotten so many questions from you guys. Um, let's see. My mission in life is to try to give value to everybody I come across. So seeing this many questions is encouraging because it helps me feel like I can give a lot of value to a lot of people. The only downside is I probably can't answer them all, but you can reach to me offline if you'd like, or online through email. Okay, so first question is from Edwin Darris, and he asked, "Hey Joel, I want to ask how you deal with cash flow issues in a business," which by the way, everyone can relate to this. I've been growing an e-commerce wholesale business via selling on Amazon. I've been increasing my inventory and it's been resulting in additional sales. So that's a good thing. I have approximately $60,000 in inventory at the moment with approximately $60,000 in sales with a 20% margin. This is great information that you're giving, Edwin, because it kind of shows you're pretty smart. Okay, so you've got 60,000 in inventory and you're doing about 60,000 in sales. I don't know if that means you've sold 60,000 over a given period of time, or is that what you're doing per year? If it is, that means you're doing okay, and a 20% margin. That's not bad. All right, so here's the question. An issue I'm having is I've been borrowing money from my main business, which are 5 retail check cashing facilities. But now that I've borrowed a lot of cash from that business, my main business is a bit short on cash that I need to effectively run that business. My question is, what suggestions do you have for me as far as solving cash flow issues in my business now and also long term? Have you ever had any cash flow issues in your business, and what did you do to solve that? Okay, so absolutely, I had cash flow issues. The first several years of my business life, I definitely had cash flow issues. So just to think this through, this opens up a million more questions. Whenever you hear a question, then I'd have another question to ask. But so I'm wondering, you have 5 retail check cashing facilities, and you've been borrowing to fund this other one. The most you could have borrowed, I'm assuming, is $60,000 because you have 60,000 in inventory at the moment, unless there was some additional cost that you had to borrow for that as well. So I'm just, I like digging in and figuring things out. So it's not just about solving this right now. I'm curious, those other 5 locations, I would hope they're very profitable, but it sounds like you're kind of getting up in debt and, to yourself, fortunately. But where's the cash going in those other 5 check cashing locations? I would think those are a mint, just printing money, doing check cashing. You don't have a lot of, I'm sure there's a lot of fixed costs, but there's, you can grow those businesses and have them spit out cash, I would hope. Your margins are good. If you're making 20% on this e-commerce business, that's good. But I see you're doing e-commerce wholesale business via selling on Amazon. So if you already know how to sell on Amazon, why not, just an idea on the sales side, why not go direct to consumer and not be wholesale? Maybe your margins will go from 20% to 40%. That's just one thought. That would alleviate that. I had an issue when I was a wholesale business. I had a wholesale business for many years. I went to trade shows and sold to stores, and that was tough because I'd sell $50,000 worth of products at my cost, and I'd sell it for, let's say, $100,000, and that sounds fine, like I made it 50,000 in profit. The problem is those retailers would pay me a month, 2 months, 3 months later. In the meantime, I had to keep amassing inventory and then more so I can refill orders. The moment I started going direct to consumer, and I did that through acquiring companies, my margins skyrocketed. We now went from buying things for $3, selling them for $15, $16, $17. So that helps a lot with cash, especially since the end consumer pays you up front. Nothing like that compared to wholesale. I'll tell you I'm not I don't hold back. I say things the way I see them. And again, I feel you. I've been through this. I went many times without paying myself a salary, having 11 employees in my office. back then and made sure everybody got paid except for myself. And I did that for months. So I've gone months and months without paying myself. I haven't done that fortunately in over 10 years, but when I started out, that's how it was. My biggest takeaway that helped me survive all of this was living below my means, well below my means. Even today, I live below my means. I have a very outwardly simple lifestyle. Nobody needs to know how many zeros are in my bank account, but nobody has to see a fancy car or fancy clothes or anything that doesn't bring me value. So I personally invest and my business invests in things that give me high returns. So that's, obviously you're asking me a question. It's hard for me to just answer it without a back and forth of maybe a half hour with you. But that's what I did. I made sure that I always had cash. I'm ready not for a rainy day, but I'm ready for big opportunities. And I've done that by saving up a lot of cash. And the only way to ride out a storm is by having those reserves. It's like having life jackets on your boat. Feel free to reach out and ask me in more detail or give me more details if you want me to go a little deeper. All right, let's see what else we have here. A lot of questions. All right, Jonathan Habercorn asked the question, I'm having a hard time keeping consistent with my workout schedule over the past months. Historically, this is due to complete overload and maximization of client billable hours, 60 to 80 hours a week, while also spending the remainder for business development, sales, and sleep. Any suggestions to get on track consistently? It's funny you asked this, Jonathan, because about an hour ago, I was looking up my workout plan. I'm training for a marathon right now, and I paid for a program that gives me every workout that I need to do every day of the week, and then it gives a little background and history and things, just little takeaways. And I read this study done by a PhD at the University of Texas at Austin and I'm paraphrasing, summarizing it, something about that for every day that you stop working out, it's going to take 2 days to catch up again. So this isn't about killing yourself and working out really, really hard every day and driving yourself to your limits, but just do that a little bit. And there's a book I read a while back called Atomic Habits, and I don't remember every detail, but I think it was that book that talked about doing these little things. If you just tell yourself, you know what, every day before I jump in the shower, this is just an example, you adjust this however you want, I'm going to do 3 push-ups. By the time you get down to do those 3 push-ups, you're going to see how ridiculous that is. You really got down for 3 push-ups, just do 10. And if you're doing 10, hey, you might be able to do 15 or 20. It doesn't matter. But do this every single day. If not 5 or 6 days a week, you pick your day off if you want. Maybe you do another thing. Every time that I put my shoes on in the morning, I'm going to do 10 squats. And it may be a matter initially of putting a Post-it note next to the shoe, do that for a month or so until that becomes a good habit. But so take into account what I read today. Perfect timing. Again, I just read this a little while ago. That for every day you don't do something, you're losing 2 days. So if you haven't been doing it, you're really going to get yourself in a hole, and then it's going to be really hard to start back up. And I think, how you do anything is how you're going to do everything. So I aim for perfection. Nobody's perfect, but I aim for perfection personally in everything I do, because that encourages me to keep going to the next thing and the next thing and doing it well. But I believe, your question is super important about exercise. I mean, if you're, and I'm saying this as if I used to work in the perfect work-life balance. I never did. Now my balance is completely different. It's more doing all the personal things I like and working a few hours a week. But when I started, I was like you. I was working 68 to 80 hours a week. You got to do what you got to do to get to where you want to get. But if you can, and you see value in it, I don't know how old you are, but this comes over time. I'm in my 40s. I started realizing probably in my mid to late 30s that physical fitness was extremely important. Diet was extremely important. I'll share what I do and what works for me, because there is another question later on that's going to ask something about eating right. And I'm not a trainer or anything like that. I never have been, but I love this topic because I live it. What works for me is setting a goal. So when I was 38 years old, 5 years ago, I signed up for my first 5K. Had never run in a race in my life. I played sports through high school and my first year in college, but never ran a race. But as soon as I signed up for that 5K, I didn't want to make a fool of myself. I didn't want to let myself down. So guess what I started doing? I started training, and I went online and seeing what you do. How do you train? Do you run 1 mile one day, 2 miles the next day? I just did whatever plan there was out there, and I did it. And now I probably run 50, 65 Ks, several 10 Ks, 4 half marathons, and now in January I'll be running my first full marathon. So as soon as I sign up for that, I commit to it. Last night I signed up for my first ultra marathon, which is anything above a full marathon. So I know I signed up for that. I got a while to go, but I'm not going to let myself down. So this is for me. Just like when you do it, you're doing it for yourself. If you care about yourself, you want physical fitness and health, then you do it. Another thing is, if you're not in good physical shape, you're probably not going to perform your best in business. You're not going to look your best. You're not going to feel good. It's going to affect into everything. Your sleep might not be as good. So if you can work a little less than 60 to 80 hours and dedicate those to exercise, I mean, we're talking 30 minutes a day. If you're not doing anything, just start walking. Go for a 30-minute walk. Put it in your calendar, block it out. I live by my calendar. Whatever's in my calendar is what I do. If an emergency comes up or something serious, I can push things off if need be, but I definitely live by my calendar. And most of my friends who are extremely successful and worth 10, 20, 30 up of millions of dollars, they're the same way, because we talk about this stuff and they live by a calendar. There's no excuses. If you had to do a 2-mile walk tomorrow, and you're going to go to bed and you see that in your calendar you didn't do it, my recommendation is get up and do it in that moment. You're going to feel a lot better about yourself, and it's going to lead to better things. So I wish you the best. Feel free to contact me, and we can chat about that more. Let's see. I didn't read this one before. Okay, Carrie Bone. I'm a healthy female. I exercise daily, eat fairly clean, diet geared for optimal brain and body function. I know the right things to do to be healthy. However, I'm undergoing surgery, a hysterectomy, in a few weeks, which will make me feel even better, I know. I'm looking at this surgery as a reset button for my health and mindset, since I've been thrown off track the past few months due to inability to eat and how I normally would. What recommendations do you have post-op that will facilitate healing and restart my body on the most effective path for the new year? I want to heal quickly and come out the starting gate smoothly, ready to run. Thank you for taking the time to answer your question. Okay, so Carrie, just from reading the way you write, I love it. I love how optimistic you are. You see this as an opportunity to reset and get going. I'm not a doctor, so I don't listen to my advice on that stuff. I'll tell you, I had an operation that took a vein years ago from my ankle all the way up to like my groin. But I had already signed up for my first half marathon, and I was so determined that as soon as they took that out and as soon as I was done recovering, I would be 100% ready to go and start training the day that the doctors told me I could start training, which, by the way, they gave me a certain date and I didn't like that date. So when I went for my follow-up, I told them, look, I feel perfect. I know how to take care of myself. If I see any blood while I'm running, I'll stop. And they checked all my vitals, they checked everything, and they approved. They said, go ahead, start training earlier, then you're doing great. So so your question is, what recommendations? I think, just like I mentioned a moment ago, eat well. My trick that's worked very well for me, and I'm lean and I don't have much body fat. I don't know my percentage, but I'm pretty lean, is I do cardio, I do a little bit of resistance training, but I don't eat much carbohydrates. I think sugar is a poison. I think there's enough data out there to prove this, that sugar is poisonous. There's a reason there's an epidemic and so many people in advanced countries that have a lot of sugar access. You see a lot of diabetes and you see a lot of big problems. I think it comes from sugar. Keep your sugar as low as possible. Talk to your doctor, see if that's the right advice. But by the way, most doctors don't have a lot of nutrition training. They have training on giving medications and those sort of things. But for me, cutting out sugar has helped me tremendously. Another thing that I do is I fast. I do it every single day, 7 days a week. The most I do as far as eating is from 11 a.m. That's as early as I'll ever eat. And I always stop eating by 7 p.m. I like to challenge myself, so a lot of times I won't eat till 12 or 1 or 2, and then I'll stop eating by either 5 or 6. And then like once a month or once every few months, I'll do a 24-hour fast or 48-hour fast. I drink water, I drink black coffee, and that just makes me feel, you talked about resetting yourself through the surgery, that resets me every once in a while when I do those long fasts. But again, talk to your doctor. Let's see, next question. What's the best way to make your first online sales of tangible products to unknown people? Okay, so let me ask that again. I just want to read it. What's the best way to make your first online sales of tangible products to unknown people? At the moment, only friends and acquaintances have purchased, and I need those online sales to come up. Well, if you know you have, it's tough when your sales are to friends and acquaintances because they'll always tell you have a great product. They're not always the most honest people because they're trying to be nice. But you definitely want to get this in front of people and test it, whether it's through marketplaces just to start out because the traffic's already there, like eBay or Amazon. If you could try that, it's a lot cheaper and simpler than building out a whole e-commerce business. But when you are ready, yeah, you definitely want to be on an I prefer Shopify Plus or Shopify if it's a smaller business that can do it. Collecting emails, getting your first sales. I don't know. It depends on the product. You can do it at trade shows. You can go to farmers markets. It depends what the product is. Just get it out there beyond your friends and family. Again, that one's a little vague because I'd have to have an idea of what kind of products to know where to possibly go get them out there. Okay, let me jump to the next question. Oh, this is an interesting one that hopefully all of you get into situations like this over time. The name is Gabor Raz. I hope I say that right. It's R-A-C-Z. We've been approached by an investor who seems serious about acquiring about 50% of our company. This is not a proposal for an investment into the company. It's him proposing to pay my two co-owners and I for 50% equity. What are the important questions to ask in a situation like this, apart from, of course, how much that payment would be? I'm thinking along the lines, how much operational control they would want to have, what kind of plans they have for the company once they're co-owners, how can they contribute to growing the company, what are the key issues we need to agree on, apart from the money, if we want this deal to happen. Well, Gabor, my first question is, were you looking for a partner? Were you looking for somebody to come in and help? If they're just buying equity from you guys, I don't know, are you just going to be in the same situation? I would hope that this is a partner that brings in so much value that that it's a no-brainer. For example, somebody with a lot of experience in that industry, somebody with who's a competitor who now you guys join forces. So I would ask myself that. You already seem to have a couple of partners. Do you want more partners? Those are more people now to get to agree on every single thing that you want to do. I'm not big on partners. It works under many situations. I'm just personally not huge on it. Just figure out why you want a partner. Not this partner, because try not to chase shiny objects. Just figure out, do I really want a partner? Why would I want a partner? Who would be the ideal partner? Forget this person. Put them out of your mind for a moment and just start asking yourself if a partner, an additional partner, is a solution for you. The other questions you have are good. About the valuation, of course. What would this person contribute to the company? Absolutely. Those are the right types of questions. And the process, I've never purchased, well, actually, I've never sold a company other than a small one that I got myself out of recently. But I have acquired 10 different businesses. And in all of those, what I've done is asked them to give me the financials. That's usually 3 years of profit and loss statements, 3 years of balance sheets. I've asked for some bank statements. So be prepared to provide all of that. And from that, if it's a smart buyer, they'll be able to come up with a logical valuation for the business. 9 times out of 10, you guys are not going to agree on the valuation. You put in so much sweat equity and work and suffering that you're going to think it's worth more. And that person coming in cold from the street is probably going to think it's worth less. So just be prepared for that. Don't be offended. It's just math. And emotion allowing to get in there. All right, let's see. Nigel Massey asked, I have a residential electrical service business. I have a website. My primary lead generators are Home Advisor Google, or Home Advisor, Google, I assume. With all the hyped selling seasons and opportunities coming in the next few weeks till the end of the year, I'd like to create weekly, bi-weekly cluster, it's kind of cut off here, cluster of days tagline appropriate for each selling season leading into that period. I'd like to be creative and intertwine one tagline into the next, sort of creating a story. What advice or direction would you suggest? So I actually wrote to this question just a few moments ago before this live session. And I wrote, I'm wondering if not following the hyped selling season and instead advertising after the hype could be less expensive and you might stand out more. So I'm always careful when it comes to, Nigel's saying here, because there's a hyped selling season, which by the way, I don't know enough, Nigel, about your business. You say it's residential electrical services. Um, I don't know that has a hype during the holidays. I don't know if that do sales go up? Are people looking for more electrical service companies during the holidays? Um, you know, the issue I'm having with that, and what I mentioned on the response is, if that's when everybody's advertising and that's when all your competitors are putting money out there on Google and Home Advisor, I would assume leads will become more expensive during that time because you're competing for more. And if everybody lowers their demand in January, let's say, I would assume you're not fighting for that click, and your leads and acquisition costs will be lower. Just something to consider. Again, little hard to get into details on this one without knowing more, and I apologize that I just can't extract more from that question. But just keep that in mind. You don't always have to go the way that everybody's going. Here's my life. Everybody goes this way, and I've always gone the opposite way, and it's worked out pretty well most of the time. I actually just saw a speaker. I was at MIT the last 4 days for a learning event for entrepreneur organization where Sean and I are members in. And one of the speakers, his name's Dave Rendell. He's phenomenal. He's got a talk called Freak Factor, and he talks about just being different and doing the opposite of what everyone does. And I've heard that guy speak 3 times, and I agree so much. If everybody's doing one thing, just question it. Is that the right approach? Just because everybody's doing that? And maybe it is. Maybe this is the time for you to advertise. Maybe it's the one season and no one else uses your services the rest of the year. But if they do, acquire those customers when they're less expensive. That's my thought on that. All right. Adriana Lima asked, how can I create my affiliate program and get sponsors for my clothes? Well, we use affiliate. We've used affiliate programs. I don't know if you're talking about just because you are in clothing. You probably want influencers to wear your stuff, and I'll share what we've done. And I've learned this over the years. You could go get Kim Kardashian to wear your stuff. It's going to cost you $500,000 for a post. But you can also get a lot of micro influencers who might have 5,000 followers, 10,000 followers. They're probably all legit. You're not just paying for those. And over time, if you add up enough of those, you may have as much of an impact as getting some big money influencer. If you go for small influencers, they're not going to ask you for any money. They'll be happy to get free samples. And you can build relationships like that over time. That's what we've done, and we find it to work. And it's so much less commitment. If you're starting out, and I always say this, keep it simple. Make sure that this is working. You don't need to go build and spend a lot of money. You just need to get some people to start putting your stuff out there. All right. This question's from Brad Coleman, and it is, I'd like to know, when creating your brand, what was the length or the time length it took for your brand to get noticed and steady revenue flowing? I know nothing happens overnight, but an overall question, what is a good time frame for me to look at to see if what I'm doing is currently working or if it needs to be reevaluated? And I apologize, I didn't touch a thing and it just kicked me out of the accelerator organization on here. So let me get back to the question. Let me find it. Sorry about that. Okay, so time frame, Brad. Man, that is, I wish I had a crystal ball. Some things I've done have worked really quickly, and some things have taken some time and been very stressful. I'll tell you this though, when I launched, I was selling other people's clothing brands, other companies' clothing brands, and that wasn't as rewarding financially or personally or in any way, but it was the way that I started my business. When I started my first brand of clothing, my own personal first brand, I've been in the industry for years, but it was my first brand, and this is like 11 years ago. The moment, I thought, okay, I've got this little brand, I've been wholesaling it to catalog companies, to boutiques, to websites, and I'm getting it out there. I'm selling it, maybe selling of my own brand. And the first year we did about $1 million of our first brand, but I never saw anybody wearing our stuff. By the way, it was an underwear brand, so I probably would never see anyone anywhere selling, wearing our stuff, because most people don't walk around the street in their underwear. So I was at a fair, and to the public, this was not a wholesale trade show or anything. I was at a fair, and a guy walked by our booth and saw what we were selling and the brand, and he said, "Oh my God, I love this brand." And I remember immediately telling him, "You've heard of this brand?" He says, "Look, I'm wearing it." And he showed me his waistband. And that was the moment I said, I made it. People are wearing something that a year ago was just a creation in my head. I named it, I produced it. And look, people in the street are actually wearing my stuff. It's hard to tell. You'll know if it's going to work, I think. And that's a perfect segue, because I had a note I wrote myself here to share with you guys about a coaching client that I have. So you're gonna know if it's gonna work as long as your numbers are straight, and you know you're making something for $10 and selling it for 20 or 30 or 40, and that keeps working, and the sales keep picking up. There's momentum there. You know that you're onto something, and eventually it pays off, right? So I can't tell you. I don't know if it's a month, it's 2 months, it's 6 months, a year. If we talk more about it, maybe I can give you a better answer. But I just keep plugging away and working really hard. That's what I did until something started showing. And remember, I did it with no mentor, no coach, no help, just doing everything the wrong way. But I figured some things out, and I got a little bit of luck on my side, and saved a lot of money, and helped my business grow that way. So I want to share with you guys, because I just said, keep pushing, and you'll know. You also can't have blinders on, and this is why I think it's important to have mentors and advisors and coaches, whatever you think is best for you. I've had a coaching client for about 1.5 years that the only reason I haven't fired that client is because her work ethic. She's a beast. She's got 3 master's degrees. She's just a tough person, works really hard, but she hasn't known when to quit her business. I don't think it's profitable. She's not even sure if it's profitable. And the reason for that is her financials are not perfectly in order. So when I have questions on her P&L and her balance sheet, she can't answer those properly. And that's a matter of not sitting down, I don't care how long, hiring a bookkeeper, whatever you got to do, get those numbers in order, and prepare that. And also, when I've analyzed the books just from what I can make out, that business is not profitable. For one thing, it's definitely not cash flow positive, because she continues to borrow personally to fund that business. And this has been going on for years. She didn't even realize this was a problem. She thought this is what you do. You're supposed to just keep borrowing and borrowing, getting into deep debt, paying 20% interest on a credit card or wherever she's borrowing it from, to finance a business that's not profitable. I had a moment in my life where I had to realize that I had to call something quits, and it hit me hard. I was in my 20s, and I built up, maybe 30. I built up a net worth of $1 million, became a millionaire, super excited, and that was all stuck in not cash, but in real estate. And then the '08 happened. All my properties were in South Florida, the hardest hit market at the time, I think between Las Vegas and Miami. And I lost everything. And I was paying on empty homes, paying the taxes, paying the homeowners association, paying everything, the mortgage. I paid everything until the day that I ran out of money. Zero money in my bank account. So over a year of making these payments to empty homes, no renters. I couldn't get anybody in. And that's with a real estate license offering high commissions to anybody who'd bring me a renter or a buyer. And it hurt. And that really hurt. But I don't regret. Looking back, it's been 11 years since then or so. I don't regret having made the decision to call it quits. There's no other option in my case. I ran out of money. I only wish I would have ran out. I would have stopped sooner, because I dug a hole in the sense that I just liquidated all my cash at the time rather than keeping something and letting those properties go. It was just, I guess, kind of pride and not wanting to ruin an 800 credit score. So just be careful. Don't, I say, I told Brad answering that question, you're going to know, just keep pushing and going strong. I'm saying that, but hopefully you'll get some outside opinion, not from your mom or friends or family, but a professional outside opinion of somebody who can tell you you're on the right path or you're not. And the thing about mentors or coaches or advisors, what you're looking for, I think, is always people who've been there and have done that, And while you're in the weeds walking through it, and I may have said this before, that person is above you, not in any not in any bad way, but they're above you looking to see where the prize is. And you're walking here in the weeds and you can't see it, but that person is up here directing you. Look, try that way, go that way and see what's there. I've had this experience, and that's how you get to where you want to go, utilizing those people that can help you. All right. So we got a question here from David Fitzmaurice. He says, I have an e-commerce store which drop ships swimwear. I have found a good supplier who has good quality clothes, sends out our orders fairly quick, and also made branded packaging for us. I was doing well with sales in the UK and Ireland, but summer's over here, so I've tried to get sales in Australia. I found it way more difficult using Facebook ads. I'm just not getting that many sales, and I keep having to pump my own money into the business. I've also used Instagram, micro-influencers, and now Google Ads. My questions are, how could I get more sales? And also, do you think I should keep going with drop shipping or save money and buy swimwear in bulk and get ready for summer in the UK and Ireland next year? Well, David, I like this question because I am in that industry. I am in swimwear. I own multiple swimwear brands, and we retail those direct to consumer online. So we do what you're doing. As much as it's going to compete with me, I would advise you to look beyond UK and Ireland. You're not going to build those sales overnight, but if you have good products, those people are going to buy once, and then if you put a good insert in there, have a loyalty program, collect the email, and hit them up again when there's a new product, you will build it over time. That's how I've done my swimwear and underwear business and socks and jeans and all of that. But if you're already in the UK and Ireland and doing well, I would focus on the rest of Europe. Australia is great because of the off season, right? When you're in winter, they're in summer. You could try for the United States as well. Problem there is that shipping cost is tough. But I own a company in Madrid, Spain that does what you're doing. We sell swimwear and underwear and that sort of thing. So rather than just swimwear, the guy who buys swimwear probably buys underwear. So you may want to look at that as well. And then from my experience, this is tough. I'm giving you advice to compete against me. That's funny. The other thing I consider is that what changed my business was not, I was doing what you're doing. I never drop shipped. I made the investment and I bought the products because I'm big on profit. Even though it hurt cash initially, eventually the cash catches up because there's way more profit in there. But I always bought inventory. But the next step is when I created my own brand. So right now you're buying someone else's brand. Every effort you make is bottom line hitting them. Even though you're making some and they're making some, if tomorrow they don't want to sell to you anymore, where are you going to be? You're going to have to go find another brand and start over. So keep that in mind. If you can create your own brands, it's great that they're shipping for you and stocking it and even putting your own packaging on it. That's all fantastic. But long term, if you want to stay in this for a long time and make a lot of money and control your destiny, I think you have to create your own brand or set of brands or acquire an existing brand. All right. Let's see. So the next question is from Marilisa Marquez Gutierrez. I'm in the cosmetic industry. I'm implementing email newsletter in order to provide related content, discounts, and increase sales. Once I gather my client's email list, how should I start? How should the first emails look like? Well, Marilisa, I don't know the industry of cosmetics, but there are great cosmetic companies out there, so you can use those to inspire you and give you an idea of industry standards, of what looks nice, what you like the best. I'm sure you're much more of an expert on this than I will ever be on makeup. I've never worn it, never bought it. But here's one thing. Funny story. My first email I ever sent out, and this is 15, 16 years ago, a client email. It was just me. I did it myself. I didn't have a team of people. I didn't have anything. I sent my first email, and now I wish I had a copy of it, but I remember it looked horrible. I even made a typo on it, and people wrote back and said it was a typo, and they said, we bought from you before. We can't believe such a professional company would have this typo. And that was me. That was very embarrassing, and I was very careful after that. I started proofreading. I started asking anybody who would read anything for me to double check things for me, and then obviously we grew and got a team and people who do that. I wouldn't worry about it being the perfect email because that hesitation will never get you started. Make sure it looks nice, show a few people, and get it going. That's the most important thing, just to get that thing going. send that first email. And try to capture emails as much as you can. Every time someone buys, you have their email. We do a lot of texting now. We've found tremendous amount of success, and we've even helped other people implement it. So not just emailing, but texting is also very important. All right, let's see. So Jason Antonino asks, how can I make the most of a business expo event as a solo entrepreneur? What are ideas of how to best network at events? Now, Jason, I don't know, you didn't mention it here. Are you on the supplier side? Are you at these expos behind a table selling products and services? Or are you walking the floor and looking at people that are selling products and services? So that's a big difference. I'll share with you, because I responded to this question telling, I think I said, yeah, I'll tell you how I learned this the hard way. First show I ever did was around 2003 or 4, right around there. I did the Magic clothing show in Las Vegas. It's the largest clothing show in the country, or it was back then, years ago. And I had a booth and I was selling to stores, and I noticed that people around me had a lot of appointments, or I didn't know there were appointments. I just realized, man, everybody's going to everybody else's booth and I'm not getting that much traffic. So I was very aggressive standing in the aisle and trying to get people to come into my booth, because here I spent all this money and I wasn't about to give it all up by not making my show count. And that was tough. So what I learned is, I was there 6 months later, or whenever I was there again, you better believe I had appointments. I called every possible buyer of my products and I filled up my calendar. And when I got to that next show, I had people one after another, and that brings, it's like inertia. That brought more people, because if I had a few people already in there, that would interest others. That's how humans are. And it rolled really well, and I sold, I think, $25,000 that next show. And the first one I maybe sold $6,000. So that worked for me. In fact, it worked so well, and this is just thinking outside the box, just because it occurred to me. I was gung-ho. I was selling another company from overseas brand that I had the exclusive distributorship for, and that was what I was going to do. However, I saw an opportunity. A booth next to me, it was their first show, and they were impressed that I had so many appointments. So I took advantage of the opportunity, because they said, would you be our representative? Would you sell our products? And because, again, they got impressed by how many people I had at the show. So I said, absolutely, I'll be your rep. We negotiated a commission, and I started taking them a lot of business and making a lot of money off taking people over there to their booth. So think about it. I didn't go in with that intention, but an opportunity was presented, and so I definitely went with it. Okay, and then Jason, the other thing that I'm thinking is, that's if you're behind the booth and you have people you're trying to get to your booth, try to make appointments, contact everybody in advance. The other thing is the opposite. I don't know, are you walking the show and meeting vendors? You obviously want to meet somehow, because you said, what are ideas to how to best network at events? Keep in mind, and by the way, I think it's really important to know your strengths. There's something called the Clifton Strength Finders, and there's many others like this, but I've done this one, and it shows you what your top 5 strengths are. The 34 standard strengths that are out there. Maybe you're an extrovert, so this is going to come super easy what I'm about to say, but go up and shake everyone's hand and say, hi, how are you doing? My name's Jason Antonino. Here's what I do. What do you do? Right? And that's how you get a lot of conversations started. Now, here's the other thing. If you're an introvert, and there's nothing wrong with that, you don't have to change being an introvert. That's who you are. If you are born that way, there's nothing wrong with it, but just realize that you are, and now go do the exact same thing. Just know your palms are going to sweat and you're going to be nervous, but that's fine. It's what you got to do. Another thing that I do is, if you do meet somebody, networking. I don't like networking. I don't get business cards and just blah, blah, blah. I like following up on those, and that might be a text, an email, a handwritten letter, whatever you want to do, but that's how you get the most value out of networking events, from my experience. All right, see what else we got here. This is from Liga, last name Sila, Liga Sila. Okay, so she says, hi Joel, I read about the way you are raising your kids to think and act as entrepreneurs already from the early age. Well, my youngest son, who is 13 years old now, he has this entrepreneurial mindset and way of thinking. Some kids are just born with this mindset, and I think you're right. And I really want to encourage him to become an entrepreneur. What would be your suggestion? Where to actually start? Thanks in advance. And I replied to this earlier, and I said, this is something I'm very passionate about, so super excited to answer this question. You guys have, by the way, have asked a ton of questions, and they're all really good. Again, I won't get to all of them, but but it's awesome. Okay, so Liga, congratulations on your son being an entrepreneur. He's probably never going to need help from you. He's never going to live under a bridge. He's always going to be successful, I think, if nourished and if given what he needs. One time I was at a kid's toy store, kind of, I forget what they're called, but it's like a learning store that has like intelligent toys. And there was a kid who wanted to buy a box of these rubber bands to make bracelets so that he could sell them at school. And I saw the kid tell the mom, if I buy this box for $40, I can make X amount of bracelets. I can sell them each for $1 and it'll make me X amount of dollars. And the mom criticized the kid so much. I couldn't believe she said, what are you, crazy? What do you think you're an entrepreneur? What is it? Blah, blah, blah. And beat him down mentally. That kid probably thinks now entrepreneurship is a bad word, and whenever he thinks about it, he's going to just feel bad and not do it. And I wanted to get involved in that conversation so bad, and I didn't because it wasn't my place. But it was so sad to hear that. So your son is very lucky that he has you and that you realize the skill and you want to encourage it. So if I don't know where online, I think it was Inc. magazine wrote an article about me once about entrepreneurship and how I do teach that to my kids, and maybe that's what you read. But I'm definitely a proponent of that. I live that life. When we have dinner in our house, we talk about that. When our kids make money, we celebrate it. When their bank statements come in every month or every quarter, we all sit around and see how much interest each one of them made. And I've got 4 kids, and they're from the ages of 14 down to 5. And so here's just to put it into perspective. And I spoke to a college class last week, and some of them were telling me they didn't have the ability to make money because they're busy with school. And I let them all say that. And then I told them, well, my 13-year-old, well, he's 14 now, he just turned 14. He's got $23,000 in the bank. He's 14 years old, $23,000 saved up. He has sold now, I don't know, some $30,000 gross sales, and he's just turned 14. There's no excuse. I didn't give him that money. Nobody gave him that money. He made it on his own. Number one, that's tremendous money that he's waiting for the market to adjust and come down so he can start buying rental properties. And he's excited about that. And he knows what positive cash flow means and tenants. And he understands all of that at 14. Obviously, he has me as a coach. But the key there is that aside from the money that he's got and the huge leg up, by the age of 21, he'll be, I think, a multimillionaire. By the time he's 30, I think he's going to retire. And I'm not just saying that. I really believe that's the path he's on, because he's an entrepreneur and he's doing it so young. But so aside from the money, I think it's the mindset. When you're 14 and you've got $23,000 in the bank and you hear other kids talking about wasting money on video games or going out and playing video games, whatever it is, or wasting it on candy, you've got this leg up. I had that as a kid. I didn't grow up with any parents that had money or knew anything about business, but I figured it out on my own, and I had a leg up. I always knew. I was 22 years old when I bought my first house. I put $32,000 down. I rented out the extra bedrooms, and I made money off that, and I kept going. I also sold chocolates. When I was in high school, I made $30 a day net profit off of chocolate bars, and that's what I encourage my kids to do. So 14-year-old has 23,000. The 12-year-old has almost 6,000. My 7-year-old has a few thousand in the bank, and even my 5-year-old, he's a tremendous seller. Obviously, he's little and he's cute, but here's how they do it. When we go to a gas station, I go to pump gas, he gets out of the car, either one of them, whichever one brought a box and wants to do it, or they rotate, they take turns, whatever it is, and they sell chocolates to everybody pumping gas. And it's hard to say no to a kid, and my kids know that. You're not always going to make money this easy. Some of these, it's hard to say no, and a lot of people just buy $10, $20 at a time. I live in a city with a lot of pro athletes, so my kids have gotten some massive tips, like $100 at a time on 3 or 4 occasions, and celebrity athletes have bought from them and stuff, so a pretty cool thing, and they get to take pictures. It's an amazing experience because making money, confidence, and also something that kids don't have today is communication skills. We focus in that, my wife and I, our kids will look you in the eye, they're going to shake your hand, they're going to say, hi, how are you? All of those things. When a lot of kids that I know have visited our house or I've seen them, they can't talk to an adult. They can't even talk to each other. They just look down at a phone and play video games. Our kids don't do that. So, and it's not because they're born any better than anybody else. If we let them, they would be just like everybody else, but we focus on that personally. So, Liga, I congratulate you for having the son that you have, and I hope you'll be able to mentor him in that right direction. That's exciting. And by the way, whenever I've had an issue in our business, I always bring it up with our kids and family, and we talk about it. I've gotten really good insight from my 14-year-old. And we had a slow month once on the e-commerce side, direct to consumer, which it's not going to hurt us anymore. I mean, we're pretty good now, but and he said, well, why don't you focus more on wholesale? I think he was 12 at the time. And he said, could you bring back the wholesale side of the business at least to help you out when you're on a slower month, direct to consumer? I don't think too many 12-year-olds are asking pretty good questions like that. So I've also sat down and showed my profit and loss statement to my kids. I've shown them a balance sheet. I show them what all that means. And then they just feel like part of this. It's a whole family thing. And I think it's great learning opportunities. And by the way, I don't think there's any better way to learn than to teach. So I speak very often at college classes about entrepreneurship, about grassroots, just starting a business from the ground up and grassroots and without a marketing budget and all that sort of thing. And every time I talk, I learn a little bit. With coaching clients as well. They may be in an industry that I don't know anything about, and when I try to apply something and see if it works and test, I get to learn a little bit more about that industry. So I hope I got to all the questions. I definitely like to talk a lot, and you guys gave me that opportunity. So feel free to contact me. You can contact me through Facebook. My email, if you want to write me there, it's Joel Gandara at morrowcapital.com. That's MORRO, and the word capital, CAPITAL.com. And I hope everybody's doing well and having a great week. I wish you all the best, and we'll talk soon.